Welcome to Developing Intelligent Bots from Zero to Hero course. My name is Sharif El Mahdi. I work for Microsoft as a technical evangelist, and joining me in the studio, Sarah Said.
Hi guys, my name is Sarah Said. I'm also a technical evangelist at Microsoft. We both work for the team Developer Experience, and we actually traveled a long way from Egypt to South Africa to shoot this course.
Yeah, the main objective of this course is to walk you through the whole journey of designing, developing, testing, and deploying intelligent bots using Bot Builder SDK for .NET and Azure Bot Service as well. We'll be also covering Azure Cognitive Services as we are going to use it to make our bots smarter. Our course consists of 4 modules. In the first module, we will have an introduction to the Microsoft Bot Framework and Azure Cognitive Services. It's where we get to know what is the bot, what are the main pillars of the bot framework, and the development lifecycle of the bot. In the second module, we'll move to have a closer look on the Bot Builder SDK for .NET as one of the main pillars of the bot framework. And then we'll move the focus to the designing part where we talk about the bot patterns in module 3. And finally, in the last module, we will explore together Azure Bot Service.
The main target audience for this course are developers. If you're new to the bot framework, Azure, or Cognitive Services, no problem at all. We'll be walking you throughout the whole bot development journey from zero to hero. Regarding the prerequisites, all what you need to be familiar with before watching this course is web development, C#, some cloud computing concepts, and using the REST API. And most importantly, loads and loads of coffee so you can follow up with us by applying what we will cover in the demos. In order to do that, you will need, in terms of accounts, an Azure subscription, a GitHub account, and a Microsoft account. We will actually be using the Microsoft account to log into the Bot Framework Developer Portal and the Lewis Portal. So if you don't have any of these, you can navigate to these links to create yours. As for the tools, please make sure to download and install Visual Studio 2015 or higher, GitHub Desktop, the Bot Emulator, the Bot Project Template for Visual Studio, and also the Bot Builder SDK. For the template and the SDK, you can actually keep those aside as we will be doing this throughout this module together. You will find all the source code of the demos on this GitHub repo, and you can also download the slide decks and find out about our Q&A sessions from these links.
Great, so let's start the first module. The first module mainly consists of 2 parts. The first part focuses on getting started with the bot development using Microsoft Bot Framework, and the second part is more into bot intelligence using Azure Cognitive Services. And as you see, the module is full of demos so that we can show you how to build, test, debug, and deploy your first bot. Before digging deep into the bot development, let's understand first what is a bot. So Sarah, can you tell us more what is the bot?
Bots are the new apps that interact with the users in a conversational format. So here, the human language is the new user interface. Bots can communicate with users conversationally, either with text, cards, or speech, through any IM channel like Skype or Facebook. These conversations can be designed to be either in a free form or where intelligence is infused in all the interactions, or to be more guided where users have choices and actions. From a technical perspective, it's a web service. So now we know what is a bot. But Sharif, can you tell us what do I need to build a bot?
Yeah, as a developer, in order to build a bot, you need 4 things. The first thing is basically basic I/O, input-output in a conversational format with dialogue skills. The second thing is connection with the user's preferred conversational channel like Facebook and Skype, Microsoft Teams, or any of these channels. The third thing is, since a bot is a web service, you need a place to host your bot. And the fourth thing is mainly some intelligence services so that you can make your bot smart.
Standing on this, the Microsoft Bot Framework was introduced as a platform for developers to build, test, connect, and deploy their bots. The platform mainly relies on 3 pillars: the Bot Builder, the Bot Connector, and the Developer Portal. Throughout this module, we will explore each of them.
So let's start with the first pillar, which is the Bot Builder. As we just mentioned, the bot is simply a web service. So you need some conversational skills to use while developing your bot. And that's why the Bot Builder exists. The Bot Builder is simply an open source SDK that enables you to develop your bot by providing some features that makes the interaction between the user and the bot much simpler. And it provides features like messages that can be exchanged between the users and the bot, dialogues to manage the conversation flow, form flow to automatically generate dialogues for the more guided conversations, and in addition, it provides access to the bot connector. The Bot Builder SDK is available in 2 languages, C# and Node.js. However, for the other languages, you can still use the bot builder REST API. One more cool feature that takes place under the umbrella of the bot builder is simply the state management. The bot builder SDK allows you to store and retrieve the state data of a specific conversation or a user that can be used for many purposes later, like returning or greeting a returning user or saving the preferences of the user or the conversation.
The second pillar of the Microsoft Bot Framework is the Bot Connector. The Bot Connector sits between the bot web service and the channels that the users use. As you can see here, the Bot Connector acts as the man in the middle that passes the messages between the bot and the users through the channels. It also normalizes the messages that the bot sends to the channel if necessary. It converts them from the bot framework schema into the channel schema. But the question here is, how does the bot access the Bot Connector?
The Bot Connector provides a single REST API to enable your bot to communicate with. So in order to send a message from your bot to the connector, you must get an access token from Microsoft Account Server. However, if you are using the Bot Builder SDK, the connector library enables access to the connector. So all what you need to do is to configure your bot with the app ID and the app password, and you get those when you register your bot. As for the channels, Microsoft Bot Framework supports several channels that you can connect your bot to, like Facebook, Messenger, Skype, Microsoft Teams, Slack, Bing, and Cortana, and more. But what if I have my custom own channel? So for example, if I'm building a mobile app or a web app that I want to have my bot connected to. In that case, you will need to use Direct Line API, which is a simple REST API that allows you to connect your bot to your own client applications or web chat controls or even mobile apps. On the other side, you can still embed a web chat control into your application so that you can talk to your bot from. In Module 3, we will be using the web chat control as part of our demos. So for now, we just have two ways to connect to any custom channels, the Direct Line API and the web chat control.
In order to be able to test and debug your bot web service, you need to download the Bot Framework Channel Emulator. The emulator enables you to chat with your bot. It also displays JSON logs on the side while chatting to your bot. If you're using Visual Studio Code, you can also use the debugger included to also test and debug. So now let's talk about the third pillar of the Microsoft Bot Framework. The third pillar is the Developer Portal. The Developer Portal is the one-stop shop to register your bot, that you can acquire the app ID and app password that ensures you that your bot endpoint can be only accessed through the Bot Framework connector. Also, through the portal, you can configure the channels that the user can use to chat with your bot, where each channel has its own unique configuration. Also, like any user, the bot has a profile that carries the bot profile picture, some description, and the handle. And all of these are manageable through the portal. The portal also provides diagnostic tools and web chat that you can use to chat with your bot once you set its messaging endpoint.
Now let's start building our first bot. In this demo, we will be exploring the anatomy of the bot project template, run our bot on the local server, use the emulator to debug our bot, and finally register the bot to acquire an app ID and app password. First of all, you need to download the bot application template from this link. And then once it's downloaded, you can put it here as one of the project templates here in this path, as one of your Visual Studio project templates. Once it's downloaded and you put it here, you can start easily go to Visual Studio and create your first bot. As once you have this application template, you can find the bot application template as one of the choices you have in Visual Studio under the C# language. Again, the Bot Builder SDK is available for the C#, not all the .NET languages. So let's start creating our first bot. Let me put it on the desktop, and let's name it as Hello World. That's our first bot. Now our project is created, and the project is basically a typical Web API MVC project. And you will realize that your project structure will be different than mine, as your project structure will contain a folder named dialogues here, since I'm using the old template for simplification till we explain the dialogues in the next module. So in module 2, we'll be focusing on the dialogues and the activities and we will have a closer look on the botbuilder.net SDK. But for now, if you can see here in the web.config, you can assign the values of the app ID and the app password once you register your bot from the developer portal from the web.config as part of the configuration of this project. And if we can have a look on the messages controller, we will see that it includes one core function, which is the post function. And the post function is the core function that takes messages from users and create replies. The function simply starts with creating an object of type connector client, as it defines a connector client by passing a service URL of the channel, which is simply the address to send the activities back or the messages back. Each channel has a unique ID and a service URL. You will also realize that your class is decorated by bot authentication attribute, and this attribute will help validating your bot credentials while accessing the connector over HTTPS. Now let's run our first bot. Basically what this bot does is it takes the input from the user, calculate the length of this input, and reply back with this string you sent, this text which was of X characters. So now we are having this running on the local host. I can now get back to my emulator, put the endpoint URL as this. So using the local host, I will add API/messages to have the message controller. I don't need now the API, the app ID or the app password, since I'm running this through the channel emulator, not a real channel. So let me connect and see here what will happen. Now it's connected. So if I can start chatting with this bot by typing hey, the bot will reply saying that you sent hey, which was of 3 characters length. Now you see here that the warnings that the bot is using an SDK version. That's because I'm using the old template and the bot builder version 3, which is an old template. When we start explaining the dialogues and all the form flow and all the new stuff in the module 2, we'll be using the new version of the bot builder SDK. As we mentioned before, using the emulator helps us to debug our project. So you can easily get back to your project, put a breakpoint here, and start chatting one more time with the bot saying, hey, Mr. Bot. And you see the Visual Studio will be running in the debugger mode as the length is 11, and you can start debugging all of your source code here. So also, I can click on one of these messages and see the JSON that exchanged between the bot connector and your bot web service. So for example, hey, it's a message, and that's the JSON that we will dig deep into in module 2 to understand what the type of the message or the activity, what is the ID and the channel account, and all that bot builder SDK related stuff.
So now, after we created our first bot using the project template, we also used the bot emulator to test and debug our bot. We are now going to register our bot on the developer portal. So let's go here to dev.botframework.com. I've already signed in, so all I'm going to do is click register, and I'm going to give it some information regarding this bot. So here, as you can see, I can upload a specific picture that represents my bot. And then here I will give it a display name. So this is the name of the bot. So here I will write the display name. So it's going to be hello bot. This is the bot handle. So like any user, you either have a handle or a username like the ones on Skype or Facebook Messenger. So I'm just going to say module 1 bot. And as for the description, you just kind of explain what the bot does. So I'm going to say, hey there, I'm hello bot. And here, for the messaging endpoint, I'm going to skip that, as now we're running our bot locally. And within this module, we will start hosting our bot, and we'll come back to the portal and actually input the right messaging endpoint. So now let's create our first app ID and app password. I'm just going to click here to create it. And once this page loads, we're going to start seeing the app ID and app password. As you can see here, the app name is the Hello Bot, as the one we registered in the beginning. We're going to take this app ID to save it, as we're going to use it in the configuration. I'm just going to put it here in a Word document, and then I'm going to start generating the app password and do the exact same thing. Just copy it and go back and input it here. Once I've done this, I'm just going to click OK, go back to the bot framework, and then just agree on the terms and conditions, and finally start registering. So now the bot is created. I'm just going to click OK. And now, as you can see here, we've registered the bot, we put all the information, and now it's time to add all the channels that we want to configure on this bot. So now we have, as you can see here, these are the two automatic channels that are added, the Skype and web chat, but we're going to leave this the same, as we're not going to test this bot right now. All we're going to do is go back to Visual Studio, go back to the web configuration, and as you saw here in the beginning, we're going to have to put the bot ID, app ID, and app password. So the bot ID here is the name that we used, which is Hello Bot. And now we're going to take these from here. So let's take the app ID, put it here, and then finally take the app password and put it here. And now we've done all the configuration necessary, and we've done the registration. So our next step is to start exploring our hosting options for our bot. So we can come up with a running messaging endpoint to be able to connect the bot to one of the real channels and not just the emulator.
To host and deploy our bot, we have different options. The first one is the local host, the same as we saw in the demo, and it's mainly used in the dev and test. The second option is to use Azure App Service, or mainly API apps, as we're going to see in the next demo. And the third option is to use Azure Functions or going serverless, and that will be the way to go when we talk more about the Azure Bot Service, and we'll discuss this in details in our last module. And we definitely have different options, like going for just having a virtual machine, that having your web service up and running, or maybe other cloud platform. So now let's start the second demo to see how can we deploy our bot to Azure App Service on API apps.
So now let's deploy our bot to Azure API apps. So I'm going to go here. As you can see, our bot is actually running locally. So we need to change that and actually run it on the cloud. So what I'm going to do here is I've actually logged into the portal, which is portal.azure.com. And I'm going to start creating a new resource group. So I'm just going to click here. And then just write resource group. I'm going to click resource group, then create. And then I'm going to start giving it some names, just to have this resource group as the container that will have our API app that will be hosting our bot. So I'm just going to call this resource group Hello Bot Resource Group. And then let's keep this, oh, I think I missed this, so there shouldn't be any spaces. So I'm just gonna host this maybe in, let's say, West Europe, and then I'm gonna click create. So now let's go to the resource group we created. This is the one we just created. And then let's add here and create the API app that we will be hosting it on. Let me just type here API app. As you can see here, I'm just going to select it. Select this as well. This is the API app we want. click create, and it will also ask me for some information. Once I've given it this information, I will start creating it, and then we will change the endpoint to see if it's actually going to run on this API app. So I'm going to call this also hello bot, since we're doing this API app. And then I'm going to use the existing resource group that we're on right now. This is just the plan that this API app is running on. And all I'm going to do here is start creating it. So this is going to go through some validation. Once it's created, as you can see here, it's deploying right now. I should get a notification here showing that it's created successfully. As you can see here, the deployment is actually successful, and now we have the API app ready for us to use. So let's go back to Visual Studio. And as you can see here, the project we have, we just want to publish this to the API app that we created. I'm going to right click here, select publish. So once I clicked publish, as you can see here, from the settings, it's using the web deploy with the server name and the site name that we've created. And it's going to this destination URL. So we're just going to have the configuration on debug. Click next. And save. And then we're going to click publish. And this is going to start publishing to the API app. So once this is done, rather than having the bot running locally, we should then see the bot running on the API app with the URL that we created. So as you can see, now our bot is actually running on hellobot-api-app.azurewebsites.net, the one that we used here. So what we're going to do now is take this URL and go back to the developer portal and just select our bot and change the messaging endpoint that we had before to this existing one. So what we're going to do here, just paste it, but we're going to have to add an HTTPS, and I also add API/messages, and then just click Save Changes. So we saved these changes. Now we can actually test this bot on the channels we configured. We can go here and test it just in the web chat. So let's say hi, and see, as you can see here, it says you sent hi, which is 2 characters. This is just a web chat, but we can also go here to the channels and test it on Skype. So now I'm just going to add our bot to the contact list on my Skype account. I'm just going to click here, add to contact. Yes, I do want to go to Skype. And you can see here our bot, and I'm just going to click add to contact again. And now I can actually just test the bot on Skype. So let's say, hi there, Mr. Bot again. And now it actually replied saying you sent hi there, Mr. Bot again, which is 21 characters. So what we did so far is we've built our first bot and we ran it locally. We also tested and debugged our bot using the emulator. We then deployed our bot to Azure API app, and then we connected it to Skype, which is one of the channels. And now let's have a look at the bot intelligence.
So when we mention the bot intelligence, we should start talking about Azure Cognitive Services. Azure Cognitive Services is mainly a set of services that falls under 5 categories: vision, speech, language, knowledge, and search, where a lot of services that can be used to and be consumed as well from the bot to add bot intelligence are here. So for example, we'll be using the language understanding intelligence service, which is Lewis API. We may also use the Bing spell check. It's one of the APIs that check the spelling of the sentence that it took and returns the JSON with the right suggested sentence. So now let's take a look and a quick tour on the Azure Cognitive Services. Then we'll focus on Lewis, which is the language understanding intelligence service API. Now let me get back to Edge and navigate to this URL. If you see the Cognitive Services URL, azure.microsoft.com/ENUS services, cognitive services, and from this page you'll find a lot of documentations and code samples and the pricing details about all of the services. So if you scroll down here, you'll find the 5 categories that we talked about, the vision, and then the services that fall under the vision category, speech, and the same language, knowledge, and search. So for example, let's try fiddling with 2 APIs like the emotion API. It's one of the coolest API that it's under the cognitive service. So for example, this API allows you to detect the emotion of the people in the picture. So you can upload your own image and try it by yourself, or you can use one of these examples to check. So for example, here it detects 2 faces and it gives scores to the emotions suggested, like the anger, fear, happiness, neutral, sadness, and surprise. So that's one of the APIs that you can use from the cognitive service. I think one more API that I really like is the spell checking API. So if we come here to the language category, we can use the Bing spell check API. So if I say here, I'm currently, let me write currently, not right, shooting one more course. So you see I have some spelling mistakes. If I click submit and check, the API is getting me, I'm currently shooting one more course. You can see also the JSON here with the score based on the suggestions retrieved of the Bing spell checking API. So feel free to explore the rest of the APIs, read the documentation to know how can you consume these APIs into your applications. And I think some of the APIs offers SDK that you can get use of as well. Now let's get back to our presentation and talk more about one of the most important services that we are going to use a lot while developing our bots, which is Language Understanding Intelligence Service, the LEWIS API. LEWIS mainly enables you to understand the input of the user and while talking to the bot and react accordingly. So the LEWIS app is a place for a developer to define a custom language model based on the keywords that matters to the user based on the bot scenario and the bot main goal. The output of a LEWIS app is a web service with an HTTP endpoint that you can consume from your client application. And by the way, this is not a mandate. It's not a mandate to consume LEWIS API from your bot. You can consume it from your mobile application or web application. Also, it's the same for the rest of the cognitive services. So let's have a closer look on LEWIS to understand how it works. Simply, LEWIS takes the sentence you write or the user writes, whether from the bot or any other application, do the processing and returns JSON based on the HTTP endpoint that you consumed. So the JSON comes with intents and entities. So let's understand what is the intent, what are the entities, what are the utterances that we can use while training the model, and how can we get started with LEWIS app to start building the intelligence of the bot. The intents are mainly representing the actions that the user wants to perform. It's kind of the purpose or the goal of the user's input. And the entities are the instance of a class relevant to the user intent. So for example, if I'm saying book me a flight to Cairo, so book a flight is an intent and Cairo is an entity of type location. But what about the utterance? The utterance mainly represents an example of the user query or command that the application is expected to receive. So for example, we have here on the screen, we have 4 utterances like book me a flight to Cairo, order me 2 pizzas, remind me to call my dad tomorrow, where is the nearest club. All of them are utterances where each one contains intent and entities. So for example, for the second utterance, order me 2 pizzas, order is intent, pizzas are entities as well. While you are building your LEWIS app, you may use the phrase list features and the button features to improve your LEWIS performance when it comes to the detection of the entities and the intents. So for example, the phrase list feature, it's kind of a list of values that falls under a relevant entity. So for example, if I can put one of the values in this phrase list is the city, and I can put under the city Cairo, Paris, London, New York, a lot of cities that I can include under this value. That's when it comes to the utterance number 1, which was book me a flight to Cairo. So if the LEWIS app detects one of these values, it treats them similarly to the rest of the others, so that you can train it with one value and it will apply with the other values. As for the pattern features, it's kind of the regular expression. So for example, you can put a pattern feature as a regular expression for the flight number. So using the phrase list features and the pattern features may improve the performance of your Lewis app. Now let's build our first Lewis app. In this module, we'll see how to create a Lewis app, publish it to Azure to come up with the HTTP endpoint that can be consumed later from our bot applications or any other application. So in module 1, we will just build the Lewis app. In module 3, we will be having a lot of demos regarding the bot buttons, and we'll be consuming Lewis applications or Lewis endpoints in our bots. So let me get back to my browser, Edge, and navigate to lewis.ai. And once you sign in, you will be able to create your new application. And if you have any applications that created before, you will be seeing this in this list. So let's create our first application. The Lewis app will be named Hello World, or maybe Hello Lewis. Make sure that someone didn't take it. And I will skip the endpoint key till we publish this app to Azure, so that we can come up with an HTTP endpoint that can be consumed from the bot we are going to build. Now, I have my application created. Let's open the application so that we can start adding intents, entities, start the training phase, and do all the related stuff when it comes to the intelligence. So here's the application ID, and I can start add intents by clicking on the intents and click add here. So let's assume that we are building a custom language model for an hotel booking bot. So my first intent will be related to booking a room. So maybe I write it, book me a room in hotel. And this is a very generic one, as it doesn't include any entities. So book me a room or book a room is the intent, and there's no entities here. So let me save this as an example utterance for this intent. I can add a lot of utterances under the same intent for training. And then I can move to entities and start adding custom entities. So for example, the entity here may be the hotel name, so I can have this entity as Hilton, for example. And the entities have types. Let's go for the simple type for now. Let me add it, and now I have Hilton as one of the entities. Let's get back here to the intents, and I will see my intent here, book me a room. Let's start typing some utterances with intents to be able to train the model. So I can say, book me a room in Hilton. And once I add this to the intents, I can come here and say that this Hilton is the Hilton entity. That's the list of the entities I have. So I can mark it here as part of the training that will be happening after I finish adding intents and entities. So you see, you can use this intents tab to add more intents. Like for example, I can add one more intent like greeting intent, and maybe the utterances here will be hi, that's one, and there's no entities here, or hey. That examples of the user's commands or the queries. And when you publish your Lewis app, the real user commands or queries based on the applications that is consuming your model will be appearing here in the suggested utterances. So in this tab, you will see some end user queries based on the application endpoint once the application is published. So that's how you can add entities, and you will find here some pre-built entities like the age, the date, dimension, email, the generic entities that can be detected whatever the nature of the application is. Let's move forward and try to explore the features. As you see here, under the features, we have the phrase list feature and the pattern feature. The pattern feature is the one who I can set under the regular expression, like the regular expression for a booking number or flight number or something like this, that I want to be able to detect from the user input. On the phrase list feature, it's kind of I can add some values under a specific list name. So for example, if I want to get back to the example of the hotel booking Lewis app, so I can have a list of the hotel, and maybe I can add a lot of hotel names like Marriott, and here I can add a lot of values like Hilton and the rest of the hotel names. Once the Lewis app will be able to detect one of these values, it will treat the other values the same. So once I'm done with this, I have to start training this Lewis model with a lot of utterances. Definitely 1 or 2 sentences are not enough or not sufficient for training your model to be intelligent and to be accurate. So you may go for batch testing when you upload a data set with some of the utterances that can be helpful and diverse to train your application, or maybe you can just train interactive testing by click train this, and it will take the utterances that we just entered under the intent tab and start training your application. So the training has been completed successfully. Once we are done with the training, you now want to publish your application to come up with an HTTP endpoint that can be consumed as a REST API into your bot or any of the applications that you are going or you want to consume this Lewis app from. In order to publish your app, you need an endpoint key that you can acquire from your Azure subscription. Once you go to Azure subscription, open it and create Azure Cognitive Services and select Lewis, as we're going to see now. It gives you an endpoint key that's the endpoint of your Lewis API to be consumed from your application. So now we need to move to Azure and create Lewis endpoint so that we can come up with the key and add it here. So let's go to my Azure subscription and start creating our first Lewis app so that we can come up with the key. Let me click add and start searching by cognitive services. Yes, here it is. So once I have it in the search result, I can click on it to start creating a new one. So here's the cognitive services. Let me click on it, then click create. And while I'm creating, I need to specify that I want to create a Lewis API, not any other API. So let me give it a name first. Maybe it's Hello Cognitive Services. And the API type, since we have a lot of services under the cognitive services, I need to just pick the language understanding intelligence service. As you see, it's still in preview. And let me pick the location, maybe West Europe. It's preferred to choose the nearest data center you, and the pricing tier, I'll go for the S0, and use the existing resource group that Sarah used, which is Hello. But I think, yeah, she used the other Azure subscription. Let me create a new resource group. Let's name it Module 1 Resource Group, and let me confirm this to be able to create. Once the Lewis app or the Lewis or the cognitive services is created, I can get the key of my API so that I can add this key to my Lewis portal in order to be able to publish the Lewis app. So it's deployment in progress. Now it's succeeded. Let me get back to the resource group that we just created. Let's back to the list here and search for module 1. Yeah, if I can see here, yes, it's module 1 RG, module 1 resource group. Let me close this. And I will find that I have only one resource in this resource groups, which is the cognitive services. Yes, Hello CS, Hello Cognitive Services. Once I click on it, I can see here a tab named keys. And from this keys, I can get the endpoint key to be passed to the Lewis portal. Let me copy this, take it, copy, then get back to my Lewis portal and add a new key. Let me add a new key here. As you see, you can get one from Azure. That's actually what we did. Let me add a new key, name it, let's have the value here, and name it module 1 key. Let's save it. Yeah, once the key is added, maybe it's doesn't accept numbers, so module 1, let's write it like this. Let's save it again. Yeah, it sounds like the key is not accepted, so let me check what's happening. Let's get back to Azure and notice, yeah, it takes up to 10 minutes to take the effect. That's why it doesn't accept this key. So if I can come up here again after 10 minutes and click save, it will be able to recognize it. Now it's not able to. So once this key is accepted, we'll be able to publish the Lewis app and come up with the HTTP endpoint. In order to save your time, I already created a key before, that's bootstrap key. So let's get back to my apps, Hello Lewis app, the app we just created, and let's publish and choose the key that I already created before. Let's train, and you can specify this endpoint is for production or staging. For demo purpose, I will go for staging. Then I will train this model that I can publish the app and come up with the HTTP endpoint. Now the training is completed. Let's click publish. And here's your endpoint URL. It's a REST API that you can consume it into any of your applications, whether it's a bot application or any other application. In Module 3, while covering the bot patterns, we'll be building 2 bots, and we will see in one of the demos how to consume this endpoint into your bot so that we can have the end-to-end scenario in Module 3.
So now let's have a bird's eye view on what we've covered throughout the module. We had an introduction about the Microsoft Bot Framework, which consists of the bot builder, the bot connector, and the developer portal. We had some demos to cover building our first bot, running it locally, and testing it on the emulator. And we actually deployed our bot to Azure API app. We connected it to Skype, which is one of the channels. And then we moved our focus to Azure Cognitive Services, where we built our first Lewis app. So if you want to read further, you can navigate to any of these links to find some more documentation, code samples, and the templates that we've used. You could also find here the links to the tools, so the Bot Builder SDK and also the bot emulator. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in our next module.